Welcome back to another episode of Bitfinex Talks. I'm your host, Ricardo Martinez. Today, we have a very special episode. I'm joined by Paolo Ardoino, CTO of Bitfinex, and Joel Vainstein, who is the co-founder of Orion X. Orion X is a crypto trading exchange that's based in Chile and is focusing on Latin American markets. Joel, how are you today? Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Ricardo. I'm great. Thank you.
Paolo, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much, Ricardo.
Well, thank you both for coming on the show. My first question for today is for Paolo, and I wanted to ask you, Paolo, why is it so important for Bitfinex to establish a presence in emerging markets like Latin America and Africa and Asia?
Well, first of all, I live in Europe, right? And I have to sadly say that Europe is losing traction when it comes to innovation and adoption, unfortunately. I see that happening in Latin America. I see that happening in what we call developing countries. The amount of innovation, passion, understanding for technology is 10 times bigger and faster than what we are seeing and experiencing in Europe. And of course, it's a sad thing for Europe, but it's a great thing for Latin America. And ourselves, we are involved in El Salvador. We are looking at the region with big hopes to keep driving the market.
Joel, my question for you is, why do you think Latin America seems to be leading crypto adoption compared to some of these other emerging markets?
Ricardo, when we started OrionX in 2017, so we started here in Chile. Chile is a pretty stable country here in LatAm, right? I would say one of the most stable countries from the political and economical point of view, also financial. It's a pretty nice place to be. You don't have many problems financially, economically, okay? So when we started in 2017, it was really hard for us to explain to people why you should have or you should own Bitcoin, right? Because inflation wasn't a problem. You can easily get access to dollars. You can transfer internationally. So everybody has a bank account in Chile. So it was really tough for us to tell people like, yeah, guys, you should own Bitcoin. You need your own individual freedom and all, because people here trusted the financial ecosystem and all. So it was really tough for us to explain this to people. But then things started to evolve, right? So people started to see what's going on in Argentina, what's going on Venezuela, and we had 2018 in Chile where we had I would call it like a revolution, so what happened is that many people started to migrate right in the region from Argentina, from Venezuela. So and a lot of people started coming into Chile with all of this expectation, but then they have the same problem. So how do you get money from Chile to Venezuela? It's really tough. So if you need to get money from Chile to Venezuela, where you have, let's say, 10% of inflation daily, and saying 10% daily inflation. So and the financial the financial ecosystem in Venezuela is so bad that it can take up to 5-7 days for the money to arrive there, right? So if you're sending on average $50, right, that is what you can send, and to the other side only gets $25. So for you, that's real pain, right? So people started to understand because they had the need to use something else, and that was crypto. And that's the main reason why crypto adoption in LatAm is getting so strong, because people need something else, which is hard money, right? Because of devaluation, and a way to transfer money abroad, right? Without all of the restriction and all of the time restraints, right? So I would say those are one of the main reasons why LatAm is getting so strong in the crypto space.
Joel, another question that I have for you is, as a person who founded an exchange in Chile, would you say that the regulatory climate in Latin America is permissive, or it's restrictive, or there's a lack of clarity? Like, how would you describe it?
Oof, yeah. So I would say you have to take it case by case, right? So if you're talking about El Salvador, it's pretty permissive, right? They're looking to get the crypto space, the Bitcoin space going, right? To get it into the economical space, right? So everyone can get access to it. So yeah, in El Salvador is great, right? But if you take other examples, it may be harder, right? So let's say Mexico, for example, they have this fintech bill they passed in 2017 and 2018. It was already going, right. Everybody thought that was going to be great for crypto, but what ended up happening is that you have a central bank that has a whitelist where it can whitelist what cryptos you can exchange, right? So this was 2018. How many cryptos do you think are listed on this whitelist?
I want to say under 10, probably.
Zero. There are none, right? So what happened is that there's no crypto space in Mexico. You only have one or two exchanges. Nobody knows why, which is pretty, well, the way things happen sometimes in LatAm, right? So you should be able to do it in Mexico, but nobody can, right? And then you have the bank side of things, right? So, for example, we started here in Chile in 2017. After 4 months, we had transacted 75 million, which was a lot for the first month of an exchange. And then, so banks looked at us and say, "Hey, no, so you're getting big too fast. We don't like you," and they cut every banking role for the whole ecosystem here in Chile. We have to go to court, and court made the banks reopen our accounts, but nobody else could, right? So first you have the regulatory point of view, which wasn't like there was no regulatory, like nobody was prohibiting crypto, but as there was nobody allowing it, anyways, banks didn't want to work with us, right? With the crypto space in LatAm. So it was really tough, even though you didn't have this regulatory restriction, right? So things are moving forward. Now are more banks that are willing to work with the crypto space. Regulators are looking to it like with a more open mind, I would say. So I think it's getting better, but it's not still the best place to be if you don't have the know-how and the know-who, basically.
Paolo, as someone who also runs an exchange for the most part, what's your experience been with the regulatory climate in Latin America? I know you traveled around a few months back and visited a bunch of countries. Can you shed some light on your point of view?
I agree that the exercise that you have to do as an exchange owner is actually taking and looking at case by case, right? So yes, in El Salvador, we recently Bitfinex Securities got recently its license to operate in the tokenized security space. I think that is gonna be one of the most fastest growing industries ever, right? So cryptocurrencies are paving the way to prove that also the rest of the traditional finance is actually kept together with the rubber and bands. And so, if you could actually finally tokenize all the stocks, all the shares, all the bonds, funds, and everything, that is much more efficient, is more transparent for the end user, and really the tech infrastructure of traditional finance, it feels like still stuck to 30 years ago. And the pace of their renovation is so slow, and that's why I think we as us as a cryptocurrency exchanges, we started from crypto, but we are evolving fast, and we are entering in the space that has been forever belonging to the traditional financial industry, because we have a user experience that is designed around the user. Try to open an account in a traditional trading platform, right? Is painful, right? You have to download 300 megabyte, half 1 gigabyte of an executable file. You have to install it on your computer, and the interface is a mess. It's super complex. And instead, we took the right steps to create something that is understandable by everyone, right? So because when we talk about financial inclusion, it's not like you have to have a master degree at the MIT to try to trade, right? You should be able to leverage these new technologies, these new currencies. Also, if you are like a normal person, if you are driving the bus, or if you are like a farmer, or you are like an employee at anything, right? So that's what I love of what we are doing, and that's also one of the reasons why we partner invest in OrionX, because that's that they are really well aligned with this vision where like the access to crypto has to be for everyone, right? It's shouldn't be any more elitary, and yeah, I think we are opening and keeping our eyes and ears open when we discuss with regulators. I agree that the banking industry, although in many places you could have favorable regulations, but as Joel said, if the banking industry tries to cut your legs, right, you cannot really run fast, and so you are in this condition where you have to fight on so many different fronts. That is not everyone is able to do that, right? After a certain time could become too complex, too burdensome, and I really appreciate the people that are staying and fighting to you know to finally to get this both this industry somewhere, but also to prove that the financial ecosystem shouldn't be belonging to like a small group of elitarian companies.
What does Orion X see in this partnership with Bitfinex?
Yeah, so Ricardo, just to add a little bit on what Paolo was saying. So the paradigm still is that crypto still needs the banks, right? So we need the banking rails still to be able to move money around. So if you are willing to, if you want to get to a crypto into any country, you need banking rails, right? Still, I think the dream of all of us is that at some point that's not going to be the case, right? Like the hyper Bitcoinization should arrive at some point. But yeah, still we have to fight with these few guys that are in control of the financial systems in each country, right? And that's part of the hustle that we've been through the last couple of years, or already more than a couple, but yeah. And sorry, and your question was, Ricardo?
My question was, Paulo just explained why Bitfinex was interested in Orion X. I was wondering why Orion X is interested in Bitfinex.
Oh, where should I start? So, guys, Bitfinex are the OGs, right? So first time I heard about Bitcoin, I think it was through Bitfinex, right? They not only have this manifesto where we pretty much agree, right? But they also have all the knowledge, all the capacity, a lot of products and technology that we can take advantage of. So at the end of the day, our goal is to be able to provide to our users in LatAm more and more products, right? Crypto-backed products, right? And if we can do it faster and better, what else can we ask, right? So those are things that Bitfinex already have. That not only the technology, but also the people. And I think the synergies are pretty much evident, right?
My next question is for both of you, and then either one of you can chime in and answer it. But we've seen El Salvador's Bitcoin Law in effect for a little over a year. What impact do you think that El Salvador's Bitcoin legal tender law has had on other countries in the region as far as like their policy goes?
Well, from my point of view, I don't pretend to know as much as Joel does on this topic. From my point of view, I think it had El Salvador took a big leap in doing this in taking this choice. Because I think it is the first country that openly, publicly suggests that there is an alternative to fiat currency or the traditional financial system. As a country, most of the countries are always trying to raise capital and issues debt internationally. to to improve their infrastructures in their own country. And I think the really smart thing that El Salvador did here, it was to create this optionality for their people. And right now they have the dollar, right? They still have the dollar. And in a way, is a currency, is a national currency that is surviving better than many others. But also, I think about it, right? So also when El Salvador gets criticized for the slowness of its adoption, or in terms of how many people are actually using Bitcoin daily, my answer and my point of view is that this is a demonstration of commitment, and it has to take years, many years. Building infrastructure, when Europe wanted to ditch all these different national currencies and have a single currency called euro, it took 5 years, 6 years to build, first of all, the financial infrastructure, right? The infrastructure across the different banks, the education of the people. Well, and when the euro became in function, people were scared. They didn't know much about it, and euro was forced into the throat of people, right? And yet it took 5 years. And Bitcoin is a bit more than 1 year, and it's building its financial infrastructure and tech infrastructure in parallel to the existing one. If something goes wrong in the both geopolitically and and globally, El Salvador is the only country that have a parallel financial infrastructure already well set up, and all the others will take years because they started later to achieve that freedom. And so that's what I like. That's, I think, what other countries are looking at. But at the same time, you have maybe the IMF or the big mainstream medias that are trying to discourage other countries to follow the same steps. So it's kind of you need a combination of many different things to because you need a strong and solid government, all aligned in the very same mission to make this happen. If you don't have that, right, politics are hard, right? It's really pretty impossible to get there. To copy what El Salvador did if you don't have a true commitment.
It's funny because so at the beginning nobody nobody took, at least in LatAm, nobody took El Salvador that seriously, right? I would say that most of the countries were expecting El Salvador to fail. Also with the maturity of the bond and all. And so what ended up happening, Ricardo, is that history used to repeat itself, right? And something that has been repeating itself many times is the valuation of currency, right? So if countries don't get this, sooner or later, they will end up with the problems that Paolo is saying, right? So I think it's really important that countries start to analyze this alternative, because so dollar now and has been, let's say, in trouble. There are more and more countries that are looking to do something on a side, right? That will have the same problems, right? They're centralized. They will have inflation. They're controlled by a single entity, right? But so at the end of the day, we're all living through the dollar, which started as a scam, right? Because they were supposed to give us back our gold, right? And they didn't. So it will repeat itself again and again and again. So, and there's no civilization that didn't end because of the devaluation of their currency. So if we don't look at the history, we'll end up the same, right? The problem is that now there's no only one currency for one country, right? So it's not only Romans. Now we're all using dollar, right? So it will be really, really, really tough for the whole world. So we need to start thinking about this alternative, which is the most hard currency that you may have. There's nothing harder as currency than Bitcoin. And El Salvador took the first step. So I think that's awesome. I don't think that it's still like having an impact on regulators in LatAm yet, but it will eventually, right? So yeah, I think it's awesome what El Salvador is doing, and I think time will give it the reason.
I recently interviewed Samson Mao, Jan 3, and he's been flying around to a bunch of different countries in LatAm and trying to orange pill the governments. Is the Chilean government like open to the idea of regulating Bitcoin in a positive way or adopting Bitcoin in any sort of shape or fashion?
Indeed, yeah. So there's a new fintech bill that was signed by the president at the end of last year, and it should be in place right on February of next year. So what happens is that the bill sets like the framework, but then the regulators themselves have to write down the rules, right? Right now we're in the process of them writing them, and it seems like it's going to be pretty straightforward. They even define what a crypto asset was, which may be right or wrong. It doesn't matter. It's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get it regulated and helping the industry like thrive by also making the banks kind of forced to work with the space, right? So it seems like it's going to be good for the industry. We have to wait until February until we have all the rules written and set, but it seems like it's going well. Actually, we're part of the process also. So there are discussion tables and all. We're part of them. Yeah, and something else that has happened in the last couple of years. Also, I think El Salvador is also in part a reason of what's going on. So central banks are feeling the pain. I think that they're like looking at this alternative and saying, okay, what can we do, right? And they think that CBDCs are the answer. I think that CBDCs are going to be something that's going to happen, but it's the same thing, right? It's still controlled by the same entity, still has inflation, it still has the same like problems that non-CBDC currency, right? So I think that's something that's going to happen. I think actually that CBDCs are going to help cryptocurrency thrive. So I'm not really against CBDCs because I think it will end up being really good for Bitcoin and the crypto space also.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Joel, right? So the thing with the CBDCs are, money is already digital, right? So this fact that everyone like Europe now wants to do the digital Europe. I mean, all the majority of the money of people is already sitting in a bank account, but the bank account is just numbers on a database, right? So the thing is that they are trying to not look too old and boomers. That's basically what it is, right? So they are trying to use new words and technologies just to try to appeal to all the people that are reading the term blockchain in newspapers. The reality of things is that it doesn't matter as if it's not decentralized. It's better to not use a blockchain because it will be just lower than any database, right? That you can have centralized. So if basically the blockchain is not Bitcoin, is anyway centralized, so who cares? And the misunderstanding from central banks, they think that CBDCs, once CBDCs are out, there won't be any reason for people to use cryptocurrencies. But they don't realize that people are not seeking the usage of cryptocurrencies only for payments, right? So payments is one part, but also preservation of wealth. That is basically everything that we talked about so far in this chart. So that is the thing that is mostly dear to people, right? So I want to preserve my own wealth. I don't want Argentina defaulted so many times, right? So people are sick and tired of that. And so they need to be able to be in a situation where they have an alternative. And so, as Joel said, these CBDCs are not giving any additional benefit. And so there is also the risk of privacy, right? So, and that is quite huge because so far you had your credit card, you had your bank account, you could pick the bank. And if you were buying a coffee or doing whatever, the information would not go to the central bank. But now, if the CBDC is directly in the hands of people, every single transaction that you do will be in the hands directly of the government, right? So it's they are removing one layer, but that layer, in a way, protected the privacy of users from the government, right? So this can go really wrong. So I think, people are not stupid. They will more. And again, I have to agree once again with Joel. That will push more and more people to Bitcoin without questions.
Individual freedom. So Argentinians cannot get their money out, right? No CBDC will solve that. That's what we need. We need to be able to move around with our digital assets, right? With our money, with our assets. So CBDCs don't solve that and won't solve that.
That's awesome that you started speaking about financial freedom, because my next question is for both of you. And how do you guys think that crypto will help increase financial freedom within Latin America?
I think we've answered it with the last couple of questions, but yeah. So it's you being able to own your own money, right? So you think you own your money, right? But then you try to send it abroad, and you get problems. Why am I having problems to move my money around if it's mine, right? Shouldn't be a problem. It's like if I own some gold, should be able to move around with my gold, right? So that's what Bitcoin does, right? So you don't have to ask for permission to move your own assets. That's part of financial freedom. And when you have all of this devaluation of your own money, so you're earning every day, you're trying to save, right? For whatever the reason you have, and 1 year later, what you own, it's a tenth of what it used to be. So you need an alternative, right? And that alternative will end up being Bitcoin. So right now you have all of this volatility and all, and it's okay. Gold used to have all of this volatility too, right? But it's going to be every day harder. It will decrease in its volatility. And in the meantime, people are getting onboarded because of USDT, right? So it's perfect for me. Right now, everybody is getting onboarded on the most, for them, hard currency, which is dollar, right? But once they're already in USDT, to get the transition from USDT to Bitcoin is way easier than getting it done from dollar to Bitcoin, right? So we're living in a transition. Where right now we're all using fiat. We have an alternative in cryptocurrency, which is Tether. We'll all end up using Bitcoin. That's my guess, and I think we won't be as stupid as we've been the last 500 years, repeating history with the fiat, and I mean, people are starting to see that, and that's one of the reasons why crypto space is so strong right now in LatAm.
I think, before you mentioned gold, right? So, they didn't give us back our gold, and that thing. So the world for the last 5,000 years have been using gold to settle transactions and to pay. The reason for that was that the gold is hard to extract. Because as Bitcoin is hard to extract, because one has proof of work, Bitcoin, and gold it needs a ton of money to be extracted from the soil. And also gold is scarce. That is 90% of all the gold that could be extracted has been already extracted. And Bitcoin is capped to 21 million. So the thing is that Bitcoin is the new gold, right? So is the digital gold. Is more efficient because it's easier to transport, right? And has many advantages. So I think we will remember in the future as the fiat period as like a transitional period. So we went from gold to something that is really bad, so fiat currencies, and then we are going back to something that is hard money again, right? But is more efficient and transportable. So I think history. We tend to think that the last 100 years is our history, but we have 5,000-6,000 years of history, and so that's why I'm really bullish on Bitcoin, because just it's going to be, it's basically going back to the roots of humanity, when people probably were be smarter and not they were not tricked into thinking that a piece of paper would represent in fact their wealth.
It's incredible because when you think about it, so everybody trusts in a piece of paper, and then you talk about Bitcoin, and they say what it is backed by, and you're like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, you're using paper, right? And it's tough when you talk to boomers or even older people. It's not that easy. So that's one of other things that are really important for Bitfinex and also for us. That is education. It's the only way. We have to educate people, and we have to be able to make them understand why is Bitcoin so important, and let's keep the nonsense, right, and understand things how they are, right. And people don't understand money. That's the main problem. Like, nobody understands money, as nobody understands internet, and they use it anyway, right. So that's part of the main problem that we have also here in LatAm. So education it's really, really, really important in the challenge of Bitcoin and the crypto space.
Agreed.
Paolo, I know you're a big supporter of education. Do you want to talk about some of the educational initiatives that Bitfinex has been involved in over the past year?
Sure. Well, we sponsored and helped Mi Primero Bitcoin. I think was really a great approach, because we have to start from both financial literacy, basic one, and to also explain why Bitcoin is important. Because again, if you don't understand what is the problem today, why you should bother to understand or to look at the solution. And that is the way, right? So explaining, sometimes I think Bitcoiners, and I include myself in that, tend to speak in a way that is that works only among people that have similar expertise to mine, right? But the reality of things is 99.999% of the population has another job, is a job that is not in crypto. And so if we want really to, if we believe in the cause, if we believe in the mission and the philosophy, we have to translate what we are saying in a way that is relatable to many people, right? So also we are doing the same thing in Lugano. The crazy thing is that Lugano and like, for example, El Salvador are so two different places. Lugano is Switzerland, so is the probably the safest country in the world. And so the different approach of education that we have is explaining to Swiss people why and how the world is really, right? So we are explaining them that what they are used to is they are living in a bubble, right? They are living in a place that is safe and sound, everyone is wealthy and so on. But that is not the reality of like the 99.9% of the rest of the population. And maybe in the future, this could apply to them, right? To their children. And so giving for granted your current situation is not an excuse for doing nothing to improve your country, your city, your small town, right? So it's about looking at where you are doing education and understanding the biases or the biases, misconceptions, or just lack of general financial literacy. And so that's, I think, what we are learning to do. And we are learning how to do education, right? So it's quite interesting also that part.
I know Orion X is based in Chile, but do you guys operate in any other countries in LatAm, or do you have plans for expansion? Like, what are you guys planning to do in the next year and a half?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now we're operating in Chile. Chile is our main basis of users, but now we're expanding to Peru, Colombia, and Mexico. We have users in Peru, Colombia, and Mexico, mainly for our OTC part of the business, which is bigger transactions where we are the counterpart, because that's easier to do without having all of the hassles from the regulators and the banks. But our goal is to have to next year. So we're over 110,000 users. Our goal is to get as close as we can to 1 million at the end of next year from the whole region, right? As much as we can, and at the same time to provide as many products and services as we can to help people be able to move their money around, to have access to, I don't know, peer-to-peer lending, to have a small loans, right? To have access to be able to have a credit card, right? So many of the products that people don't have access right now, but backed by crypto, right? That's our main goal, and that's what we're looking to do in the region.
Paolo, what are Bitfinex's goals to establish like a greater presence within Latin America?
From our point of view, we first of all, we believe that a company like Bitfinex in general, companies cannot professionally cover every single piece of land of the world, right? So it's important to do partnership, to do collaborations. I would never pretend to know Chile as Joel does, right? So it's important that companies that share the same philosophies are working together towards the same goals. So that's basically what we are doing also in El Salvador, but also in Argentina and so on. So I think divide and impaired, that is a Latin way to say you have to split and then you can lead, right? So you cannot be everywhere at all times and be as efficient and perfect in every single place. It's much better to work with people that know the different territories better than you.
Is there anything that I haven't asked you both that you feel is important for people to know about Bitfinex and Orion X?
Yeah, so regarding Orion X, I think I've said much of part of it. We're looking to help get people their individual freedom. We're looking to have this financial inclusion. So this is something that nobody's talking about, but this trend about neobanks in LatAm, right? Also in Mexico, yeah, they were going to onboard like all of the people that were unbanked and all. So you have places in like Colombia and Mexico where more than 50% of the people are unbanked. There are these huge companies with this huge valuation. So in the last 3 years in Mexico, which has a population of over 130 million, they have only onboarded 2 million people to the bank ecosystem, right? I think the goal, the impact that Bitcoin and crypto companies can have is actually that. Get people into the financial ecosystem, have financial inclusion, maybe not into the traditional one, right? But this parallel one is great, it's more transparent, it gives you this individual freedom, and those are the things that we're seeking with OrionX in the region.
I would say that first of all, it's an honor to work with clever guys, and we are super excited to see the growth of OrionX even farther in the region.
Well, I want to thank you both, Joel and Paolo, for coming on the show and letting me ask you a whole bunch of questions about Latin America and both exchanges and what they're doing in Latin America.
Awesome. No, thank you, Ricardo. And really, we cannot be more excited about this partnership with Bitfinex and Paolo. So yeah, we cannot be more happy. And thank you for the invite. Lovely to talk to you guys.
It's really my pleasure. Thank you very much, Joel and Ricardo, of course.
Before we go, I just wanted to get Joel to give people information about Orion X. Like if any of the listeners want to create an account or follow you guys on social media, would you mind giving those links out?
Yeah, of course. So it's orionx.com, where you can access and register yourself. The onboarding takes you 2 minutes. It's pretty automated. It's pretty straightforward. And also, if you want to start learning, if you're not into the space, follow us on our social media, where we're doing plenty of content to help educate people. So that'd be it.